NewGenGamers.com.
Welcome everybody to Console Wars of the Past Part 4, the Sega Saturn section of this little journey. Today we're going to be covering the unfortunate mishaps of the Sega Saturn. And we're going to start off here with one of EA's franchise, Andretti Racing.
Another franchise that, or another thing that just wouldn't carry on.
Yeah, EA really supported Sega during the Genesis days, and this carried over to the Saturn because they expected Sega to continue to have the success that they did with the Genesis.
Yeah, EA put a lot of support behind Sega, and at the beginning of the 32 and 64-bit era, all of their stuff went to the Sega systems. They really they were the only system to have sports across the board at first.
Because I don't remember many EA games on the Super Nintendo at all.
Yeah, they were there, but they did definitely put their support behind Sega with the number of titles they released. So they continued to support them. As the Saturn started out, this was one of the earlier games. I believe this was a 96-97 one. So EA did not go with the right system on that, and it, I think, ended up hurting them because by the time they switched production to the PlayStation 1, they had put a lot of time into their Saturn games, and it took them a while to get good PlayStation games made. Madden got hurt, and we'll talk about that when we check out Madden 97.
Yeah, for about a year there. Oh, well, forgive the load screen, or the lack of load screen. They just kind of kick you right into it.
Watch for that green flag, and here we go.
Now, the Saturn actually released with two different, with a kind of a different controller than what was released in Japan. It's kind of a bigger, boxier version that a lot of people looked at and kind of asked why. It was basically just a larger version of the Genesis controller. It comes with 6 buttons and a couple triggers. The Japanese pad was more slimmed down and kind of circular. No one could really explain why they chose to take that route, but you can kind of feel the difference when you're playing with it.
Japanese people have smaller hands overall, I guess, than Americans, but other than that, I really don't see a reason for the change. I like the smaller one personally, but I thought the American one was just a little too bulky.
Yeah, it
has unnecessary space. That's the thing, you know. I don't mind something if the space is well used, but
kind of like the original Xbox controller.
A lot like that, yeah. Just big and bulky and unnecessary.
Didn't need that giant X in the middle of it. But you know, it doesn't feel bad for a gamepad, you know, overall.
Yeah.
It just feels like a large Genesis controller.
Yeah, pretty much.
Now, this racing franchise, I don't believe there were too many Andretti racings made. They kind of switched over to NASCAR once 98, 99 came around.
Yeah,
I noticed that was the more popular racing.
Yeah, I'm not sure if they even did any more in this series, and as you can see, there's some McDonald's sponsorships in there, and of course with it being racing, everything's advertised, but
yeah, the drivers even have their own advertisements on them. See, me, player 1, I got 10th place. It's an alright racing game, but, you know, For the time, the graphics look pretty nice.
Yeah, that was a decent looking game.
Just takes an awful long time to get to, which is unfortunate with these with the 3D consoles. You ended up with a lot of load times.
These load screens are
ridiculous,
treacherous.
Let's see. I might make a sandwich.
Yeah. I think the Saturn died while people were stuck on the load screens, just waiting.
Yeah. Now, don't get us wrong here. We love our Saturn, or at least I do.
I have no real feelings towards it. I barely knew the thing existed when it was around. But you know, it just wasn't the right system at the time, and nobody had faith in Sega.
Yeah, the consumer confidence really is what hurt them the most. Was after the Sega CD Genesis 32X combination of the Tower of Terror.
That sure blew his doors off.
We just, you know, a lot of people looked at Sega and went, okay, so how long are you going to support this one?
Yeah, no one wanted to hand them $400.
Yeah, that was the worst part, was releasing at $400. Surprise, launching at $400. We'll get a little bit more into that later. But
so it was a tough sell. It was a tough sell to consumers. It was a tough sell to developers with how hard it was to program for, and nobody could really get into it.
yeah, and that was the main problem with the Saturn, is that it just didn't have enough of a following. It wasn't a bad system, it's just the way that they made the console, it just made it too hard to develop for.
Yeah, it had two 32-bit processors that basically ran most of the system, and then they had another processor that ran the CD-ROM exclusively. So they touted it as a 3-processor machine, which was pretty impressive at the time, but the thing was, it was hard to program the processors to actually work together. So a lot of people just ended up developing for the one processor. So what else do we got here? Let's continue on with this.
Alright.
Sega Saturn, the benchmark of engineering excellence, combining 3 32-bit RISC processors with 5 additional processors to create a head-snapping 500,000 polygons per second. Wow! Experience Sega Saturn's monster torque and parallel processing power. All the speed and handling you'd expect. And every inch a Sega.
You thought you knew how to play the game? But no one has played this hard, this fast, this real, until now. Come, look into the world of Sega Saturn.
UJGamers.com.